Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Losers Bracket Round 119. This week we're going to be joined by Clutch, a man that you might know from watching some MLG over the last year or so of esports competition. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts. I have LordJerith from vVv. I've got Kurt from Check 6. It's been a pretty exciting week in the world of competitive gaming. Kurt, how are you doing this week, my friend?
If I could reach my unmute button, it would definitely help. I'm doing well, A lot of stuff to cover this week. We got GESL, we got Dreamhack, we got the always awesome robot dancing Clutch, and we've got quite a few things to cover. So I'm ready to get right into it. Jerry, how about you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm glad MLG reversed decisions so that I didn't have to hear crying about the World Championship and the MLG Raleigh event at the same time. I'm glad they were able to work the logistics of that out, because the Reddit thread on it was I love gamers, I do, in that sort of way that takes a certain degree of patience. So yeah,
hey, Sundance gets it again. What are you talking about?
Well, you know, one day he does, then he doesn't. These are experts right here. You know, it's either killing esports or, you know, he's better. I always find gamers to be the loud vocal population that wears you down by being annoying. So, I mean, I'm glad they got what they needed, though.
I try to be as annoying as possible. I sent him like a 2-page long email giving him all the reasons why this is a dumbass decision. So I'm sure he enjoyed that thoroughly, AKA he deleted it. But I don't blame him.
But you know what? You know who we shouldn't delete is our guest for the night. That was a horrible segue. But either way, I'm joined tonight by Clutch. This man did such a good job with the Kespa introductions last week when we were all at MLG Anaheim. Josh, welcome to the Losers Bracket, my man. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Came back from hosting E3 and Anaheim and kind of decompressed for a bit, and then had an incredible weekend of not just Dreamhack, but kind of the minor leagues that were happening as well, with the GESL and the New England StarCraft 2 League that was happening. So I've hardly left my apartment. It's just been a lot of stuff that's happened within the last week. But I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking.
That's awesome, my man. Okay, so for those that don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of introduction into you? Who is Clutch? And, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself, your education, where you grew up, where you live. Tell us a little bit about the man that is Clutch.
Well, I'm originally from the Seattle area, and I moved when I was 14 to Kansas and lived there for a bit. Graduated from high school from a small town there called Atchison. We had about 72 people that graduated. We had more, but they got pregnant and had to drop out. I'm just grateful that I had the internet there, because a lot of people were kind of bored in that town. But after graduating high school, I got a full-ride scholarship with the Air Force, so I was going to be a pilot, and my scholarship was in computer engineering. But because of the war with Iraq, they were cutting some scholarships for some of the cadets, and I found out that I was one of the cadets that got cut. And that's actually where my call sign Clutch comes from. I actually earned that in the Air Force, and I graduated second lieutenant in the AAS program, which is Arnold Air Society, which is a pretty rigorous program within the ROTC. But anyways, when I found out my scholarship was cut, my major told me that he would pay for half of my tuition out of his own pocket if I can come up with the other half. And so I was really impressed that they wanted me that badly, but I didn't like computer engineering. I have a lot of respect for people that are in programming and deal with that field, but it just didn't feel right to me. And I enjoyed the Air Force program, but I decided to go back home, and I went to Kansas, and the very next day moved with my family to Virginia, where I currently reside. I worked construction for 8 months with my dad, and then I actually served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in LA, and I lived in places like Compton, Watts, South Central, Venice Beach, Redondo Beach, Inglewood, Linwood. So some of like the ghetto places, but also some really nice places as well. Learned Spanish, interacted with a lot of people. And when I came back, I thought about what I was good at. What have I been doing since I was 5 years old? And that's been entertaining people. And I decided that I would pursue a career in acting. And I just graduated with my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting from Old Dominion University last month. So that's me personally. I'm still in Norfolk, Virginia right now. I plan to move by January, most likely up to New York City. And I'm so happy to be involved in esports. It's been a blast so far. And I actually got a television shoot Thursday I have to do. So my acting career, it's a little small right now. I live in a small market, but it's growing more and more. But hey, man, 4.7 million viewers watching MLG Anaheim, and you know, the concurrent views. It's really good to put on the resume.
Yeah, definitely. That's quite a history you have there. Like, honestly, I got to be honest, I don't want to sound ignorant, but I did not know any of that. That is so awesome to hear. Tell us a little bit more about how you got into competitive gaming. What brought you into this wonderful world that we're helping grow right now?
Well, I grew up playing video games, and I competed a bit in Brood War, just in local LANs and the Seattle area, but was never like a full-time competitor and didn't really win anything, but just had a lot of fun. And I played Counter-Strike and you know, played on the internet back in the 56K modem days. And I knew of the esports scene that was in Europe, and I knew of Brood War in Korea, but I didn't follow it because I was just busy with, you know, sports and high school and all the things that I was involved in, and getting my Eagle Scout and black belt. I mean, just everything like my parents pushed me to get because I was the firstborn kid, and so like I'm trying to live for them all the dreams that they want to accomplish through me, I guess. But did a lot. It was really busy, but video games was always part of like my regiment every day. I always played. And when it came to Major League Gaming, I had heard that they were hosting the first StarCraft 2 tournament in North America, and I waited so long for StarCraft 2 to come out, and I was the first one in line at the store to get it. I was almost in tears picking up the collector's edition. I played the beta, so I was totally enthralled by StarCraft 2, just like pretty much any Blizzard game. And when I heard that they were doing a competition, I wanted to compete. Even though I was nowhere near a pro level, I thought this would be really cool to be involved in. But they sold out within seconds, right? So my friend Wigan actually got in, and I decided to support him and went to Raleigh, North Carolina. Met some key people there. It was funny. We were in the lobby, and I saw a bunch of teenagers there. And Halo was pretty big back then in MLG, and so I was looking around and thinking, okay, who here has a driver's license? Because they're probably a StarCraft 2 player. And finally met Lee Chen, MLG Lee, and also Mark Turner. Talked to them for a bit and exchanged contact information and told them of my performance background. And you know, I was a fan of Halo. I really liked what they were doing with Halo. But to me, StarCraft 2 was just much more enthralling, and I felt more connected to it. And after telling them about my background, they said they had a position to be a cameraman. And so they hired me to be a private contractor for the rest of the 2010 season as a cameraman. And every event got bigger and bigger and bigger. It went from one bench to like 3 benches, and then a big group of people watching the finals for StarCraft 2. So when 2011 rolled around, they switched some things up, and they didn't have a cameraman position anymore. So they're trying to figure out where to put me. And MLG Dallas happened. I wasn't able to attend, and they had some issues. And so I got a call from Lee and said, hey, we need your help. We need somebody that, you know, like understands the game but can coordinate a lot of things that happen as a production assistant, kind of smooth out a lot of issues. So they hired me for the Columbus event, which was really, really big because the Koreans were coming for the first time. And so I made sure the Koreans were good, and I would communicate between all the different streams, any kind of issues. I mean, there was like driver issues with the Osiris keyboard and trying to fix that. I was just everywhere as a production assistant and maintained that capacity throughout the 2011 season as a private contractor, and also interned for MLG to help start up the beta caster program, which has involved into the what they call the community caster program, but now the premium StarCraft 2 streams. And I looked for talent and organized all the VODs and did a lot of work that way, and also did a lot of stuff with the French community for translations. And then when things were pretty much smoothed over and it was a well-oiled machine of how everything was going as far as StarCraft 2, we noticed there was a lot of crowd shots. And they knew of my background, and I always brought a suit jacket to these events just in case they needed me on camera. And it came down to where they needed my help with League of Legends because I knew the game and the production staff was more, they knew more Call of Duty, and they were switching on the stream between, and so I helped them kind of coordinate what was going on with the game and explain to them what was happening in a live setting. But there were some issues with the stream, and Nexi, who was the director of that stream, I told him, hey man, I got a suit jacket in the hotel, so if you need to be on camera to fill any time, just let me know. And he goes, all right, we'll see. And it came down to they needed that, and they put me on camera, and I came out and said, hey guys, apologize for the stream issues. This is what's going on right now. It's neck and neck. It's kind of back and forth, and gave them a rundown of what was happening, but not giving away too much so the players wouldn't hear what was going on. And some people around me was like, wow, that was really epic. I said, thanks, man. And I went backstage. And after that, like after my debut on camera, StarCraft 2 realized, hey, we could use this guy. And for the rest of the 2011 season from Orlando on, I was doing interviews and introing players. And at first, I was trying to figure out exactly what they wanted and how we were going to do this. So it was a little bit shaky sometimes because I'd be busy doing something. And they're like, hey, we need you to interview the winner of this last match. I was like, I didn't see the match at all. So I'll try to formulate some questions, but it's going to be kind of tough. But once we understood what they needed me to do and what I needed from them information-wise, it got better and better and better. And that has evolved into what you guys saw at Anaheim. So I'm a host, interviewer, and I really love hosting. I love engaging with the crowd and interviewing the players, and I'm grateful that MLG has continued to hire me as a private contractor to create this position and to make it better and better. And I've spoken with some other leagues as well to host for them, and that's up to them to decide to hire me or not. But a hosting position, and to me, it's really important, and it's important to separate it from the casters, because casters need to focus on casting, and the host needs to focus on questions, be very flexible. So that's my position right now in esports. I'm a host. I also do casting on the side. I've casted a couple Gears of War tournaments and some StarCraft 2. So that's where I'm at right now, and it was such a blast to do MLG Anaheim and to do those Caspa intros, man. It was awesome.
That's really cool. Apologize for the stream viewers. We just had a little spike of lag there. But Clutch, really cool. Jerry, I want to get a little bit more questions from your side of things. Please take the mic, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to get a little bit more insight into what you see sort of as the future for yourself. I know you just mentioned now thinking about other leagues. Obviously, you're contracted by MLG, so you have the option to do a lot of different things. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Mentioned possibly moving to New York from Norfolk. So where do you see yourself over the next year?
The next year, I definitely see myself living in a larger market for acting. Most likely it's going to be New York City, because it kind of feels like family now, the people that I work with, MLG. I just signed with an agency. There will be a press release within the week with more information about that. I've been in negotiations with them even before E3 or Anaheim, so that's going to open up some more avenues, because this agency has worked in another scene that is very popular. So having an advocate and an agent that works for you and can offer you more compared to just working on your own is very exciting. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, in the acting world, how an agent works is the agent really works for you, and they don't get paid unless you get paid. So having that advocate is something exciting to have, and it adds more legitimacy to the scene. Within a year, I see myself, like I said, in a larger market, hosting more, being more, continuing to grow my product in esports as a host. I could always be like a backup caster, but hopefully making a living out of this and being able to do it so much that it pays my rent or supplements what I do in the acting world as well.
Clutch, when you say a larger market, do you mean not a larger market than esports, or what do you mean in particular?
Norfolk right now, I have done pretty much all I can when it comes to like television and stage. So when you live in a certain city, there's only so much that you can make out of yourself, unless in the acting world, unless it's New York and LA, because those are major acting hubs. So when I mean a larger market, I mean a larger market as far as the acting world. Esports is so cool in a way because it doesn't matter where you live per se, because everybody's pretty much flown into the events, right? I mean, the MLG road crew that sets everything up, they're flown in, talent's flown in. So where you live is not necessarily as important as in the acting world, right? Somebody will hire somebody to be in a commercial because they live in New York and they don't have to pay for the travel costs, compared to me trying to get out there and audition and then flying all the way back and then not hearing anything, or like, oh, we're going to have a call back, but we're not going to pay for your flight to come out. So it's logistically, it's just better. But that's what I mean by a larger market.
Gotcha. And when it comes to sort of your own passion for esports right now? Are you still wholly immersed in StarCraft? Is it League of Legends? What is your love right now?
I've been playing a lot of StarCraft 2, League of Legends, also dipping into Smite. Gears of War I definitely played. I play pretty much everything, man. StarCraft 2 is the core right now to what I spend the most time with as far as research of the players, understanding build orders, the metagame, because that's my bread and butter when it comes to esports. But I'm always trying to diversify my portfolio. For example, if somebody needed me to host League of Legends, I would say yes. I would feel prepared enough to know the different teams and to know the game, to ask appropriate questions and to be a confident host up there. So it's kind of tough sometimes because I can't be an analytical caster like Artosis or Apollo that are just 100% into the game, watching all the VODs, all the replays, understanding everything. But when it comes to the overall aspect of these different games that are coming out, I feel very comfortable with a lot of different ones. So I love also one thing that happened at Anaheim is somebody came over from the League area and said that, like, League of Legends was better than StarCraft 2, and they got booed away. And then somebody made a sign that said, "Why can't we love all the games?" And I was like, that's so true, man. That's the kind of community that we have to have in esports, is that we really should embrace all the games. I love the fighting game community as well. I mean, when MLG decided that they were going to have Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur 5 on the PS3, I physically took my Xbox 360 copy of Mortal Kombat, traded it in, and got the PS3 copy just to just show my support for the scene, really. So I'm in a lot of different areas when it comes to the gaming world. And on my show, I talk about a lot of different games, from MMOs to betas to new releases. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be everywhere.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let Kurt hop in, else I'll monopolize this. So, Kurt, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and you give your spin at it.
All right. Yeah. Clutch, I've got quite a few questions. I mean, first you talked about signing to an agency, and just so I'm clear, are you talking about something within esports, or are you talking about more of your acting agency or full sort of?
It's going to be more esports driven, actually. There'll be more information that's released within the press release that'll happen within the week. But
I know from knowing a little bit about your history and doing a little research and stuff like that, you're on like the esports management group or something like that. Now, which I find incredibly interesting because a lot of people seem to miss that scene that's popping up. That is something. I come from CS, as a lot of people know, and I draw a lot of, I guess, similarities between the communities now, and what's going on now and what's going on in CS. And that's something that did not go on in CS at all. That is something that's brand new to StarCraft and League of Legends now. So that's pretty amazing. So I don't expect you to tell me more about it because I have a feeling like it'll be more of a press release thing later. I understand.
Yeah, but I can tell you that esports, it truly is a beautiful thing, and I have a lot of passion for it. But there's so much that's growing that it can expand to other areas that will just help it even more. And that's in areas behind the scenes, behind the cameras, and people in front of the cameras. And that can be from things as simple as merchandising to working in commercials with peripheral sponsors. The Kingston HyperX commercials with Machine and Idra, they're really funny. They're really fantastic. And I feel there can be a lot more of that with different personalities, with different sponsors, especially as more and more companies, for example, Logitech being one of the title sponsors for Dreamhack was a big deal. And using talent to further grow that scene, I think, is important.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of those esports sort of management companies now, and that, to me, is just amazing. There's I know of at least 3 right now, which is just absolutely phenomenal. I never expected to see that, 5 years ago.
And there's so much. Being at E3, there's so much of the gaming world that has not been completely exposed to esports yet. They're getting there more and more, especially with the GameSpot coverage, and then Twitch TV going to be on Xbox 360, so it's getting there, right? But with more exposure and more proper marketing, it's going to get better and better.
Kurt, did you die on us?
We may have lost Kurt there.
No. For just a second. The pains I tell you of being a manager with the team. Jerry knows what I'm talking about. I had to deal with some ECA stuff. So,
gosh.
Yeah, got tied up. But Clutch, yeah, and that's the thing, man. They're very. There's all kinds of new stuff popping up which is pretty amazing. I want to talk to you a little bit now that we talked a little bit about your career and your backstory and stuff like that. I want to get a few opinions from you, about general things. You've worked with MLG for a long time now. I think you understand more than most how the open bracket works and how the championship bracket works and how everything and the sort of media surrounding them. Because like you said before, that's one of your many jobs is to understand the entire scene more than just the scene that what necessarily some of the other people need to know.
My role is to tell a story. I'm a storyteller, really. There's a lot of different stories to tell.
Yeah, if you don't know those stories, you're kind of bad at your job.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the open bracket and then the presence of people there. What a lot of people, including myself, tend to see that there is a problem right now with people trying to break out of the open bracket, and mainly because some of the reasons the media coverage behind it is fairly lacking of the players that do well in the open bracket and the players that do well and other things and stuff like that. What do you think the solution is to that? And I mean, if you pull out your crystal ball, let's hear what you would do to try to make things a little bit better with that.
Well, first of all, if I had my own camera team at these Major League Gaming tournaments, or if we had a separate B-roll crew that can go out there and interview the different players that are kind of breaking out or doing very well in the player pit, the open bracket, that's B-roll that a tournament can roll during those crowd shots, during downtime, right? And that's updated stuff that's happening, 4 hours ago, 2 hours ago. Last year, we were able to have some RoboCams at the Major League Gaming tournaments. And I would, for example, I interviewed Goso User, who was doing very well in the open bracket, and he got some camera time and some exposure. He was pretty nervous, but he was on everybody's lips for a while because of that. Suppy, at this last event, had a huge breakout performance. He won the Breakout Performance Award. And I didn't know that much of what was happening because I'm so focused on what's going on the main stage that it was actually my friend Galen Andrus, who does the Twitter feed for the StarCraft 2 scores and what's going on. Also, Wigan, who's now a ref for Major League Gaming. He's been a ref. I started as a cameraman. He started as a referee and an admin, and he's been there since, which is pretty cool. But I would hear stories from them about what was going on, but that's about it. And we would get bracket updates. So if there was a separate crew that could get that information, that could expose it to the stream, that would be good for everybody. It fills up time. It also gives more exposure to the lesser-known players. I also feel that esports journalism can make a goal to say, okay, I want to talk to 4 players in the open bracket that have not been interviewed by anybody, and to find those 4 players and schedule a time when they're not playing to do it, or to do it ahead of time before the tournament starts. That way, the journalists or the journalism website has good content. And yes, it may not pull numbers compared to interviewing DRG or MVP, but it's showing more of what's happening that people are not seeing on the main stage. So those are 2 or 3 ideas that I have to kind of help out right now. But of course, everybody's trying to get those numbers and try to get people to view them. So it's a little bit difficult, but I see so many people trying to get interviews with kind of the top players that they almost get bogged down by their schedules. And there's some of these people in the player pitch like, hey, I played my game and I went 8-0 so far and nobody knows who I am still, so this is kind of cool, but some people are congratulating me. But it's still evolving, so we'll see. I mean, I have other recommendations for MLG, like a better awards ceremony and everything, but they're the ones that make those production decisions.
Yeah, I always thought it would be interesting, at least just an experiment, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but I always thought it would be interesting to steal from IPL. Yeah, get a live view camera in there I love that entire sort of concept, and maybe just building that into, like you said, the filler time. I mean, MLG, if they have nothing, they have some time to fill.
Which is part of my job too. I'll be back there, and Puckett and Ryan will discuss, okay, like, who can we use for an interview? What can we do to fill time? And I'll have something planned out, and I'll come up with those questions. And at Anaheim with those Blizzard interviews, you know, those questions were pre-approved on both sides. That's why I had to kind of read them word for word. But those are something that, I mean, it's so fantastic. You know, I get to interview Dustin Bradler, David and Mike Morheim. That's amazing. But those are like pre-scheduled. So what do you do if somebody 2-0s an opponent in 20 minutes? You have 40 minutes to fill, right? I have an idea. Like, I can have Clutch's Corner where I have a couch and people can sit down and do stuff. I mean, the Dreamhack Too Good couch was a big success. I had at least over 2,000 people watching it kind of at all times. So there's some things we can definitely do. It has to fit within the Major League Gaming budget, or any tournament's budget, when it comes down to it. But I don't want to sound arrogant, but I have a lot of talent to throw out there, and I'm used to 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour days where I'm continuously talking or interviewing or doing things. That's what I do at the MLG arenas. I am in the Dr. Pepper Lounge all day, you know, doing all sorts of things with the different players, or on my own, interacting with the community. So it's something that I'm perfectly willing to do, and I'm trained to do it, like proper voice techniques and everything, that I won't get physically tired with my voice. I think sometimes people in the production side are wary of, oh, that's going to be too much on him, or he can't do that and host the main stage and stuff, which is understandable. But you know, something needs to happen, that there needs to be more exposure to these players that are at the player pit.
Indeed. Something that's somewhat related but a little bit different. One thing we talked about last week, and you were giving recommendations for things they could change. One thing we had talked about with In Control last week here on the show, I had created a thread over on Team Liquid about this, is there was a little bit of a situation that happened at Anaheim where staff members of MLG were kicking players out of the player arena, and some people were taking offense to that, where they said, well, hey, the Koreans aren't being kicked out, and why is this going on? From your side, you've been working in the back with the staff. You've kind of seen a little bit of this from both sides. Can you give your opinion on what things MLG could possibly change to please both the players and possibly still, you know, keep it even for everyone, make sure that no one's upset about being kicked out, while at the same time being respectful of the Koreans that have traveled halfway around the world? What do you think they should change, if anything?
I think part of the solution is to create a better player lounge, a place where, like, sandwiches and water and a couple feeds of the different streams, be it from the feature station or from the main stage or the secondary stream, the players can sit down and watch, like, their teammates play and enjoy themselves for a bit, and not have to be interactive with fans. Part of the reason that players like to stay in that area is they don't want to be a jerk to fans that ask them, hey, can you sign this, or hey, can I get a picture, when they want to support their team, right? And In Control posted that. And that's perfectly understandable. Now, from MLG's side, they're like, well, we want you to interact with fans. The fans have paid for the pass to interact with the players, so that's part of the whole experience, right? So I think that if they had a player lounge, it could be in an area that fans could be outside of and ask pros for autographs, or you know, something that better separates in a certain area the players from the fans, so the players can just decompress for a bit. I mean, some of those players, especially being in both the WCS and the Spring Champion Tournament, you know, they would lose in WCS, and then their match is right after that, and that can be really daunting. And then if you have fans waiting for an hour to get an autograph with you, and you lose both the games, and now you have 16 fans waiting for you to sign something, like, dude, I feel terrible, but I can't say no, because then these 16 people are going to tell 100 friends of theirs that I was a jerk. So it's part of being a professional player. That's what's going to happen. Fans are going to continually ask you for things, and you have to kind of be on your best behavior, because you represent yourself as, you know, product and name, and you also represent your team. I feel, you know, that having what BlizzCon has, so they have a separate area where you can watch things on TV of the feeds, and you can eat and be separated from kind of the chaos of the floor, would help. I don't know if there's more that could be done, but again, this comes down to budgeting and floor space and everything that goes on there. Now with the Koreans, a lot of that has to do with the language barrier as far as the kind of treatment that they get. Because of the schedules and everything, the refs can't contact the Korean players on their phones. Like, unless they have Kakao Talk, whatever it's called, to message them, that communication is not completely there. So they need to have the Koreans in a space where they can say, okay, your match is in an hour, or this needs to happen. And that's what I've been told from my buddy Wigan, who's an admin. So as far as like the Koreans getting preferential treatment, people can view it that way, but it's more of like, hey, they have no way to contact these guys because of international calling and whatnot. They need to be in the area to tell them when their matches are.
Oh, that's actually very interesting. I've never even thought about the communication aspect of it, so glad that you brought that up. Jerry, did you have anything to throw in with that, buddy?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask actually something about the the sort of comment you just made about fans and players and MLG's expectations and players' expectations. And when I think about a professional sporting event, I certainly don't go to a professional sporting event to get someone's autograph. There may be specific fan events, but they generally aren't, that I get to go to an event like that. Let me ask this question. Do you think in some ways it may be an issue where a lot of players just don't have sort of the right training? Like, no one's training these players how to be professional. No one helps them understand how to best manage their time and all of those things. Do you think there's maybe just not enough professional development in the space because it's so young?
Kind of two parts to that. One is the role of management, and two is the role of like how do I phrase this? Public presence, if you will, like how to handle yourself in a public setting where lots expected of you, or you're kind of representing more than just yourself, right? And that's kind of tough, especially with gamers that are not as social or outgoing compared to other types of things. And we see in traditional sports, these players will have managers, or they'll really smile or address questions. And they'll get better and better the more they're exposed to the fame of it. I think that some players get it a lot easier. For example, in Control, because he has a debate performance background, and so that's why he's so vocal and well-versed in how he speaks. Some other people, that's not even their personalities, and they're very kind of, not standoffish, but more quiet. You have to approach them rather than they approach you. So that's up to the team as far as how that management needs to work and how to properly train the players. I don't know if there's some sort of class they can go to, like how to be professional gamer 101 in the scene, because they're so focused on the game itself. For example, Naniwa. Naniwa, he cares about the game and that's it. Interviews, 2-3 word answers. I don't know if teams he has had in the past have said, hey, you need to be more open your answers, you need to smile more. I'm not sure, because in the end, the results come down to the game. But I feel that players are warming up more to interviews on the live stage and being interviewed and stuff like that, because they're used to it now, and they're used to being in front of the camera and the pregame interview and the postgame interview and the press coming in and talking to them after a match or after an event. So as the scene still grows and they have more experience with that, they're going to get better and better.
Awesome. One more question for me, and then I'll pass it on to you, Kurt. If I want to talk a little bit about when you sort of prepare for an event. A lot of people may wonder, how much is scripted? How much do you have to do on the fly? What is the process that you go through when you're actually working at an MLG event?
Well, we'll get there between an hour and a half or an hour before we go live. For example, on Saturday, like Friday, I'll get there around whenever they need me, like either 10 or 1 for production meetings. Friday, the schedule's pretty set with the matches that we have. It's Saturday and Sunday that's really chaotic sometimes, especially Saturday because it's all based on results and there's no set. I mean, there's a set schedule, but it's very flexible because of game time. With me, I think of questions I want to ask the players that are currently playing or about to play, be a pre-game interview or post-game interview. And usually I'll talk with the director, the producer, and they'll say, okay, we're going to do a pre-game interview, or we're going to scratch all interviews right now because we're on an accelerated schedule. So I'm backstage sitting next to the rest of the production team, and I'm thinking of interview questions. I'm watching the matches. For example, that Stefano Polt match, he went 2 ultras in 2 games back-to-back. So I asked him, well, were you trying to surprise him? What was up with that? So I have to continually be flexible on what's going on around me and to be also engaged in what's happening on the screen with the players. Now, when we have, for example, a match is 1-0 and it looks like the other player is going to completely wipe the next player and it's only 20-30 minutes into the game and we have 30 minutes to fill, immediately we're thinking, okay, who can we do an interview with? How can we fill time? And I'll throw out like 5 or 6 names and we'll decide on one. We'll contact them real quick and say, hey, would you like to be interviewed? And most of the time I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I'll come up with the questions as fast as I can or just go off the top of my head on stage or on the caster desk. And that's pretty much a typical day for me. Now for the Kespa intros, I knew I was going to be introing them weeks in advance. And I took that very, very, very seriously. And I had a vision pretty much of how I wanted it to happen. So Ryan, the producer, was coming out and he's like, okay, it's going to work like this. I said, no, it's not. It's going to work like this. And I wasn't like trying to be a jerk or anything, but I told him this is the best way it's going to work because of the camera angle, because of the player position and timing and everything. And he was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So after like being backstage and producing that and speaking with the Koreans and finding out who's going to say what in English, at first it was just going to be one person, Fantasy, saying something in English. And then it turned out to be everybody except Calm. And then Lita did that backflip. That was magic, man. We didn't like script any of that. That just happened. But we did script them coming up, waving to the crowd, saying something on the mic, and then walking to the other side of the stage. Like that was it. So when it comes to live production, I want to have a general sense of what needs to happen so I can control that space in a way, but leave it open enough to the players so things like that can happen. And that's basically what I do. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking at times because you can say, okay, if this is 2-0, we're going to do a post-game interview and a pre-game interview for the next matches. If it's going to be a 1-1 and then it's going to go another 30 minutes, we're going to cancel interviews, maybe do a post-game. So it's really, really on the fly, and I have to be really flexible with that. But that's that passion, man. I mean, knowing the game and knowing the players and coming up with those questions is my job. But that's a typical day.
That's intense. That's really intense. We're going to have to wrap up with you soon because you've got your own show that you're going to be going and doing. Kurt, did you have any more questions before I started to wrap things up with Clutch?
Yeah, I've got 2 final questions, Clutch. The first off being, what is the future? Where does the future hold for Clutch? Do you want to expand? I know you talk about you wanted to expand. Do you want to expand into other games? Do you see yourself, do you hope that MLG sort of takes some of your ideas and incorporates them in? You can get a little bit more sort of mainstay and like a production standpoint, like you said, from the Clutch couch, the Clutch eSports couch. What's the future look like for you, buddy?
Well, first of all, I'm really appreciative to all of the positive support I've been getting over the last, year or 2 years of being involved in esports. It'll be 2 years this upcoming event in Raleigh since I attended my first MLG. And building on top of that, I'm always trying to improve myself and the production. I went back and watched the VODs, and I took mental notes of, okay, I can improve this way, or that was really good. And I really absorb all those compliments that people have given me. And you have to, because I put a lot of work into this, and this is something that's very special to me, and I'm glad a lot of people have enjoyed it. But there's more that we can do. So working with MLG has been great. Like I said, I'm a private contractor, just like most of the casters. So if another league wants to hire me, Dreamhack, I speak Spanish, and I love to go to Spain, so that would be cool. NASL, they're having their event in Canada. So I've been approached, or I've approached these other leagues, and we're in talks and negotiations and stuff. But to me, you have to have that role as a host that can really enthrall a crowd and tell the proper story of these players. Esports is about the players and the fans. Everything else needs to surround that. And I try to treat everything that I do as a professional and to bring that professionalism on stage and around the players. Yes, I've made mistakes. The team poll thing, yes, very funny. It's a huge meme now. And I embrace that. I don't know why I said it. I think it was just nerves or something. But I take those things seriously as well, to be like, okay, that was funny, laugh it off, but let's not make that mistake next time. And as esports gets more and more mainstream, they need to have more and more legitimate people fill these production spaces. And it's great that they're giving a lot of chances to a lot of different people. But when you have so many eyes watching esports that have been involved in television production, that have a certain standard of what a host should be, what a caster should be. And I'm not saying esports has to sell its soul or anything. No, esports is its own thing. But when you have a stamp of professionalism to it, along with uniqueness and personality, that is what's entertaining to people. So the future for me is to continue to improve, to continue to build myself, as Clutch. I think about 5 years, work in the acting world as well, get nominated for Best Supporting Actor, not win, but then win for Best Actor the next year. The next year win and mention esports in my speech, and then esports will just continue to grow. So.
Yeah. I'd like to thank the Academy, and I'd like to thank esports.
Thank esports, man. I have I'll use my GG button and just in the microphone after I walk off. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, winning. There you go. Last question. It's kind of a selfish one. I hope you don't mind. At E3, I was able to, or we were able to, I guess, from the online perspective, look at Smite, and I know you have some insight in there because you're going to give away keys on your Twitter and all that good stuff. I'm sure me and Jerry wouldn't mind one.
Not at all. As much as it pains me to have to accept it, I would never turn down.
Hey, why'd I get left out of that? What's up with that?
Anyway, I do want to know what the game looks like, man, because to me that's unique, to say the least. So I want to hear your opinions on it, if you can talk about it at least.
Yeah, I played it at PAX, and that's when I met a lot of the high-res studio staff, and I told them, hey, I've done some work with Major League Gaming, and their eyes lit up, right? They're like, oh, here, skip the line. Let's talk about the game. So it was cool to get that kind of preferential treatment because myself and Wigan, who was with me, understood the core mechanics of what games need to be considered an esport. And of course, the community really builds it up, right? And if the community's behind it and the game is solid enough, then it has promise. To me, Smite adds a twist to the MOBA scene that is not a gimmick, but actually having that locked third-person camera set behind your character to where you can't move the camera around the map. You are set on your character. Adds like ganking mechanics to the extreme, right? Like you can't see behind you and somebody can just sneak up behind you. The art concept or the design concept of the different gods from different pantheons, be it Greek, Hindu, Chinese, or there's one more, Egyptian, is a pretty cool thing because there's already a history of these characters, right? I mean, you've seen them in movies or literature. So building on that, it's a lot of fun to play. It's still, they're working on balance and different mechanics, but it feels faster paced. It rewards you for pushing your lanes instead of just farming all the time. And the fun factor, to me, which is really important, is really, really high. So I think it has a lot of promise. I have mentioned to Hi-Rez that I'd love to cast some games when it comes to Smite. They've watched me stream it, and they've talked to different people in the chat about the game that had questions. So I feel it has a lot of promise, and it adds something that's not like, okay, we're just going to copy what other development companies are doing for MOBA. No, it adds something that makes it feel like it's a standalone type of game. And I'm really excited to play it and to see how it further develops. Right now it's in beta. And yes, I will be giving out one beta key at the end of Shifting Gears to celebrate having over 3,000 followers now on Twitter. But that's pretty much all I can say. If you guys have more information or want more information, go to the website, which I believe is smitegame.com. You can actually access the beta by pre-ordering the game. but I believe it will be free to play as well. So.
Cool.
That's an interesting concept. Pre-order, but we're gonna give you your money back later. So
yeah, I think well, when you pre-order it, like you unlock all the champions except 2.
Oh, okay, so it's like a Han thing. Okay.
Yeah, you get like a lot of added stuff, and you get beta now. And then when it's released, I think it'll be free to play. But then you can purchase like gems, I think they're gonna call it, to unlock more stuff and skins and whatnot. So it's a freemium model.
Cool.
Perfect. All right.
Very
Thanks,
cool.
Bud.
Yeah. To wrap things up, I've got one final question for you, just to kind of encompass this. Since working with MLG, becoming an on-air personality, I want to know, what is your favorite moment that you've had? You know, I know the Kespa moment was really near and dear. I've got my favorite. I was there at MLG Orlando when MC did the "I kill you," which that was so beautiful. But what's your favorite moment that you've been involved in?
Well, Kespa it tops the list, but because we've already talked about that, I'll share another one, and it's at the MLG Anaheim event, and that was for the finals. And this, to me, gentlemen, this happens in production that it's magic. It really is, because this wasn't scripted, this wasn't planned out. We didn't time how long the interviews were going to be for the finals. But when Tasis and Artosis threw it out to me to the stage to introduce the finals, Slayers Alicia and MVP Dongregu, Max, who was the sound guy, just so happened to be listening to the lobby music for StarCraft 2, which was the main theme, and it's very beautiful and very dramatic. And he puts the volume up, and so you hear this music going on from StarCraft 2 when I'm introducing the players. And right during the commercial break, I came out to the crowd, and you know, this event was huge to me. I was sitting in my chair on Saturday thinking about Kespa and my background with Brood War and how much that game meant to me as a teenager, and I was trying to fight back tears thinking about that stuff, and how such a privileged position I felt, and also such an important position as well, because these Kespa players, this was their first exposure to the StarCraft 2 North America tournament scene, and I wanted it to be perfect for them, because these guys are legends and they deserve all of the credit and praise for their legacy of Brood War and our support for the transition into StarCraft 2. So building on the success of that intro, the finals to me was also very important. So during the commercial break, I went out to the crowd and I came out and said, "Hey, you guys hear me?" They're like, "Yeah." I said, "All right, guys, you have been wonderful so far. You've been a great audience. But right now the world is watching, and this is your moment to show the world what StarCraft 2 eSports is all about. Can you do that for me?" And they erupted in cheers, and I said, "Okay, I'll be back in a second." And when we came back, that's when they threw it back to me. So the music's playing, and I mentioned these different bar crafts, and when I said Barcraft Boston, they went crazy, and that's what they tweeted at me later. They just went nuts. You know, I mentioned Richmond. I should have mentioned Montreal, which is a huge Barcraft. I'll get the next time. But Tel Aviv had a Barcraft in London. So it was really awesome. Just, you know, give those shout outs at the finals, right? But introducing or saying, "Are you ready?" which is like my kind of trademark thing now, and that crowd going nuts for so long was so incredible to stand on that stage and hear that. And the stream doesn't do it justice. You get a sense of it, but audio-wise, they were so loud, and the music is swelling, and it's just a beautiful thing. Introduce the players. Really hype them up. It's not fake hype. It's true hype. Slayers Alicia is there. He's done a fantastic job. DRG has won an arena, but now this is his chance to win a pro circuit. So this is pretty dramatic, these two going in. Slayers Alicia was super nervous. Dongregu had been there. He was confident. So when they shook hands and I said, you know, "Anaheim, let's do this. This is StarCraft 2 esports history." And the music decrescendos, and it goes to the casters, and it ends perfectly when it goes back to the casters. And people are going nuts on Twitter like, "Did you time that? How did you do that?" And I said, "Guys, that's production magic." So to me, that's always going to be something that I'll remember. I mean, the whole event I'll remember, but it all just came together in that moment. And I'll always remember that. So
that is so cool. Oh man, that actually gave me chills. That's really cool. Clutch, it has honestly been a pleasure. I know you've got to go do your show. You got 10 minutes till that starts.
I do. I got my guest Julia sending me a smiley face. I'm like, hey, I'll get you within a sec. So,
speaking of,
no.
while we're saying by the Clutch, he is having Julia on tonight from Check Six. So everyone, open up both streams.
Oh my gosh.
And watch both of them. They'll be talking about some good stuff, I'm sure.
Okay, so before you head out, any shout-outs?
I'd like to thank everybody that has supported me and supports the esports scene. When people ask me how can they further support esports, support your players, support your teams. You know, buy their T-shirts, buy their merchandise, watch their streams. And hey, if you want to watch me play some StarCraft 2 or some other games and have some fun, that's great as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Clutch08. You can watch my show Shifting Gears as well as when I stream at twitch.tv/Clutch08. Like I said, there will be a press conference coming out within the next week. That will be a pretty big deal as far as this agency, which is it's some really good stuff. And I wish I could say more, but I'll leave it to the surprise of the press release. And gentlemen, it's been an honor to be on your show. I am a fan, and I appreciate everything your team does in esports and the content that you guys create. So thanks for having me.
Clutch, thank you so much. We'll have to hop on some League of Legends together sometime soon, my man.
All right.
You have a good one. Have a good show later.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Wow. That was awesome. I actually really like him. I like what he's doing. I had no idea about some of his background. I am really impressed. I cannot wait to see what his announcement is that's coming. We are going to take a quick break, quick commercial. We'll be right back. We'll hop into some general news. And after that, we have a little bit of something new we're going to try a little later on. Stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back on the losers bracket after a great interview with Clutch08 and what he's done with MLG. Let's get into a little bit of esports news. I say we start out with a little bit of CEO that just happened here in Orlando. If you did not get the chance to check it out, what an awesome event. Shout out to Alex Jabali, who put on an amazing event here for the fighting game community. Honestly, great performance from our vVv guys and Evil Geniuses. Huge thumbs up to them taking top 3 in Street Fighter Arcade Edition AE. But here at vVv, first place in Soul Calibur, RTD making an impressive comeback, defeating Kayani in the grand finals after losing to her at MLG the week prior. MLG took top 2 with CD Jr. and Rio in what might be his final tournament ever, taking the top 2 spots. And King of Fighters, oh wow, what a performance from Romance as he knocked out Mago, who flew over from Japan for the event, and then proceeded to fall just short to Bala, taking second place. Kurt, did you get the chance to catch any of CEO? I really would love to know what you thought about the stream.
I caught all of, or not all of, but I caught the sort of the finals, semifinals, I think maybe even quarterfinals for Mortal Kombat. I caught some I think some King of Fighters, I believe. I don't know, mainly Mortal Kombat though. And I really enjoyed it. I wish I didn't like it because we've had Jabali on the show before, and like he seems like a nice guy, but he's definitely a character, you know. So I kind of wish I didn't like it, so I could say, you know, fuck fighting game events, esport events all the way, kind of thing, and start a war. But no, it was a good event. I like the fact that he had this whole sort of NWO feel to it. You know, it was really old school, you know, wrestling feel. I mean, they were playing on a fucking wrestling mat or a boxing ring, you know, so it's pretty interesting to say the least. I like the themes that he did this year. I'm curious if do they do that every year, or is it just this year?
Okay, I'll say it like this. The entire event was wrestling themed. It was really interesting. In fact, I've got my badge right here. It was a take on the old NWO logo with the CEO, and the whole main stage was a wrestling ring with stairs up to it. And when the fighters were coming up to get into the ring, you'd actually have entrance music. You'd get to pick your entrance music. You'd come out to it just like it was an actual event, you know, wrestling event. I loved it. It was so It was such a cool little addition. And he did tell me in secrecy what his plans for next year, where I can't spoil those because I don't want to ruin his hard work. But if he gets to do what he says he's going to do, he's going to top it next year. And that's pretty cool.
I really wish people like MLG, and I'm not just saying MLG, IPL, any of them, would really take some of the stuff from some of these smaller events. Yeah, I know it's harder to do. It's on a grander scale. They've got a lot more to deal with. But stuff like the NASL entrances, where players pick their music and they ran down this big red carpet and stuff like that. Stuff like that. Like in the end, like you want to make your show better. That's how you do it,
Indeed.
So, interesting.
I agree. Jerry, what were your thoughts?
I want to throw some in there real quick. Yeah, I want to say my only worry about that is that, to what you said, Kurt, is that if they do start doing that, I think that, they can't win, because then the community will accuse them of stealing things. But I do think, to your point, MLG should come up with an original show. Not necessarily borrow from CEO or borrow from anywhere else, but really think more about the production value overall and see if they can't deliver a more unique and more spectator-involved kind of programming. I think that would be good. And I only say that because I just know that in many ways, especially like the fighting game community, as soon as MLG copies CEO, all of a sudden, I think all hell's going to break loose. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, the good thing about MLG is usually they're fairly upfront when they do take something. I mean, they've taken things before and kidded about taking things before. The eSports couch from old school Dreamhacks and stuff like that. So and they tend to be when they do that, people tend a lot to like call them out on them less. So I would love to see it either way, but I agree. I mean, something unique to MLG. I mean, really, other than Clutch, MLG doesn't have a lot of unique things, which, some people could say is a good thing. It mainly focuses on the gameplay, but if you want to get those different eyeballs, you're going to need something else on there, in my opinion. So,
While we're speaking,
and that's one of the reasons I think Dreamhack does so well. So, anyway, go ahead.
While we're speaking of things that are unique, I have to give a shout out to the editor-in-chief of Shoryuken.com. His name's Keats. He is developing his own fighting game. I told him I was going to give him a shout out this week on the show. Here it is. He is developing a game called Divekick. And Kurt, if you've not seen this, you have to check it out. It is... What a unique fighting game, okay? It is played with a controller that looks similar to the old Bamani, Papa Music Japanese rhythm game controllers. But there's only two buttons, a blue and a yellow button. One is to dive, one is to kick. It's you jump in the air and you dive kick, just like in a fighting game. If you kick your opponent, you win the round. First person to get to 5 round wins. And there's actually really intense strategy to it. You have a meter just like a regular fighting game. If you fill it up, your character doubles in speed. And if you get kicked in the head, you start the next round with a concussion, which means you're slower by 50% for 5 seconds. And it sounds so utterly simplistic, and it looks so utterly simplistic, but it is so fun. There was so much hype around it the entire event, and honestly, I could see it as a really fun side event, a future fighting game, or maybe even esports arenas and things like that. I loved it. Shout out to Keats for a job well done. I cannot wait until this game is actually sold. Kudos. But with that being said, Jerry, overall thoughts on CEO before we move on?
I mean, overall, I was happy. I mean, I was glad to see our fighters do well again. I was less happy with CD Jr. being drunk and tweeting about it, but, I guess you sit there and you kind of look at it and you go, man.
At least he didn't do like my players did and punch somebody. So, I mean, what can you do?
No, I mean, there isn't much you can do. And he looked horrible that first match. But, I'm also a little disappointed to see Rio retire. I mean, I guess it's good that he goes out this way. It's almost poetic that he beats CD Jr. in this.
Hold on, is he still going to retire?
As far as I know, I mean, a lot of people made like little comments that, oh, Rio just wanted to get out of his contract, was going to retire and join with another team. I don't care. I think people, even if that were true, generally if a player wants to leave and get out of the contract, I don't care. Right? That doesn't mean that we don't enforce our contracts, but I don't want anybody in VV Gaming who doesn't want to be there. I don't believe that to be true. Rio hasn't said anything like that to me, but I've heard people make little digs like that, and either way, Rio's a great player, and I really hope whatever he does, he's successful, because he really is a phenomenal Mortal Kombat player. So overall, I'm happy. I mean, RTD is fantastic. He does great interviews, and Romance is also fantastic. So even though I'm going to be focusing more on the fun part of what we do in vVv for the rest of the year, I definitely look forward to EVOs. So all in all, good.
Indeed. Let's shift focus a little bit over towards MLG. MLG Raleigh is coming up. It is the next big event, aside from their arenas, of course, on the MLG calendar. And there was a little bit of drama that just happened between MLG and the Blizzard run WCS. At first, there was a little bit of a debacle where they said, hey, people that play in one tournament are not going to be able to play in the other because they're both going to be run at the event.
Debacle is a good fucking word, Jace.
Well, hey, you know, since you jumped in there, tell us a little bit about what was going on there with this, as we just said, debacle, Kurt.
Yeah, so they announced, they all came about, they announced yesterday that they were having the qualifiers for the arena event for summer. That was, of course, the open qualifier that leads into the invite-only qualifier that leads into the summer arena. Anyway, and at the bottom, they had a little bitty text that said, or just a little small amount of text that said something to the extent of, if you qualified national players cannot participate in invite qualifiers or anything like that. And really, no one had any idea what they were talking about, because that's never was brought up before at all. So when a few people asked in a thread about it, and I think it was John who responded with saying the full story, basically that if you won a spot at the North American national event for WCS in Raleigh, you would not be allowed to participate in the open bracket of MLG at all. You would basically have to play in the WCS, which to a lot of players was not only very surprising, but it was it upset a lot of people. So that's pretty much the story.
Yes, but with that being said now, MLG has come out, said they have listened to feedback, and this has been changed, where now players will be able to play in both. The bracket will be staggered to allow players to be able to play in both, and it seems the community has responded very favorably to this change. There was such an outcry on Reddit, on Team Liquid about this. I'm glad to see that MLG is listening to the feedback. Now, my main question is, what will we see different with, and I mentioned this to Clutch earlier, the staffing situation and how they treat players and that entire thing at the next event as well, because I haven't seen any feedback regarding that. But Jerry, before we move on, did you have any thoughts on this subject? Did MLG make the right move? I think they did, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think that there's more involved than just MLG. I mean, I think that's the most important part, right, is that I think that Major League Gaming actually finds itself in a situation where they're not the only ones pulling the trigger. And I think they kind of, I'm sure Blizzard approved this, and then when the community had a backlash, I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard then wanted MLG to take the fall, because it was one of those, like, and Blizzard had no part in this decision, right, or was unaware of the press release.
Yeah, they made sure to note that in the press release, so I find that very interesting, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting as far as, you know, in the end, I couldn't care less, you know, who approved it, disapproved it, anything like that. They fixed it. That's all that matters. Hopefully the schedule is better for this event, but I don't think people are going to be bitching as much, even if it's not, because the WCS event is amazing. It showcases a lot of unknown players. And, you know, hopefully, you know, they can also participate in the open bracket now.
Yeah, indeed. I agree with that. I mean, we saw actually former vVv member Daisuke actually take second place in Anaheim with the WCS, so it is a really good chance for players that might not necessarily have as much exposure come out, show what they're able to do, and I look forward to seeing how Raleigh ends up now that this change has been made. One last thing about MLG, and right after this we'll be taking another quick break before coming back for the ending of the show, wrapping up. But MLG has finally announced where the Fall Championship is going to be. There had been a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, people thinking, hey, maybe since this is the last event, something really crazy is going to go on. MLG has announced today that their fall championship, the last major championship event of the year for MLG, will be held in Dallas, Texas. This will be a really interesting thing for them to do, as that they had such problems there the last time with before the satellite trucks came in, saying, hey, we got to fix this. It's almost like a big turnaround now with the possibility of MLG coming on TV, saying, hey, we're going to make this right. This is going to be our last stop of the year. Kurt, was this a pretty cool decision? Was this the wrong choice for the final venue of the year? Dallas, give me your thoughts.
I personally would have loved to go back to see them go back to Providence, but I might be the only one in saying that. I really just enjoyed how much the city of Providence sort of helped them out, and sort of, they put it all in the newspapers. So there was a lot of sort of quote-unquote mainstream press behind that. I understand the decision behind Dallas, though. I understand it completely, so either way, I'm not upset about it. I don't think we're going to see, like, the dreaded MLG 2000, was it 10 or is it 11? It was 2011, right? Dallas event or anything like that come back. They know what the hell they're doing now. They've got backup plans after backup plans, so shouldn't be that big of a deal either way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be sweet poetic justice in a way to kind of show how far things have come from the way that that event turned out in the past. Jerry, any thoughts before we move on?
No, let's go ahead and move along. I don't want to belabor this anymore, so we can go ahead and move on.
Let's cover DreamHack next, Jason.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Kurt, I have to be honest. I have to be, completely upfront. I did not get the chance to watch very much DreamHack this past weekend. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What you think of the event, Kurt?
Well, the most obvious sort of thing that is amazing about DreamHack, just talking about the player pool, is the fact that Koreans were virtually nowhere to be found. And I think there was one in the top 8. Yeah, one in the top 8, and that was Hero. So pretty amazing stuff. Stefano took out Nurchio, and then Mana from Mouse Sports was able to take out Stefano in the semifinals. And then, of course, Damaga from MTW was able to take out a guy named Fryer, I think is how you pronounce his name, could be. But I honestly have never heard of that player. I don't cover the European scene as much as I should, but I'm sure Adabisi will bitch at me about that in the chat that I don't know who he is. But he did incredibly well this event for DreamHack. He ended up taking out Sase, which, I guess most people would call that an upset. Sase played amazing. Naniwa, I would say, probably played maybe less than expected. Because in the end he is, supposed to be this big Korean slayer, and he ended up losing to Damaga, who's traditionally not the most high-performing player in the world. So, anyway, the event ended up being won by Mana, 3-1. So, I'm sure a lot of people saw that. If you didn't see the VODs, go ahead and check them out. As far as the production for DreamHack, as usual, it was really, really amazing. I would say their ending ceremony, quote-unquote, wasn't as good as it was for the one that Thorzane won a few months back. But the venue was a lot different. They sort of went out onto the stage immediately rather than having the, thrust stage is what it's called, in the middle of the venue kind of thing. But it was still good. It was still good to hear sort of this music being played, blasted over a really amazing backdrop. The way they worked their cameras and their jib arms is what it could be, is really amazing. And actually Jason Tugman's doing a show on that tonight, so really, really amazing stuff out of them. I wish we could see more like that out of MLG. The way they work their jib arm is like completely through the crowd and sort of almost nosedive kind of thing. I know it's hard because the venues are of course different, but I would really love to see some stuff like that out of MLG. So yeah, there was no real problems. Fnatic, of course, won the CS tournament, which is amazing. For those that were able to watch CS, it was really, really amazing finals. And yeah, good stuff.
And CLG EU taking home the League of Legends tournament there as well, winning $15,000 and 5 MSI gaming laptops. So pretty exciting highlights that I've seen, them taking 2-0 a win over Moscow 5 in the finals. One last thing to note about Dreamhack. I saw a thread earlier today on Reddit that had some pretty interesting statistics. Dreamhack was played on Swedish national television. 43,000 was the average amount of viewers at a time. Over the weekend, 211,000 unique people watching Dreamhack on television. Not bad numbers at all for the largest LAN in the world. With that being said, Jerry, we're going to move a little bit into GESL. I want to touch on it really quickly. Big event that just happened in SoCal, not the only event, aside from MLG going on down there. They did have a little bit of an issue as they started out in that the event was held at a school, and there was a firewall that was actually prohibiting video games from being played on the network. That was eventually corrected, but it took 3 hours away from the start of the event. Little bit of issue, but once they did go through that, TSM ended up winning the League of Legends portion of it, winning their 4th straight tournament. Pretty crazy to say the least, especially when Kurt over here hates on them so often. Just saying, pointing that out.
I don't say they're bad. I say they might be assholes, is what I say. But
I think you're ridiculous, and I shake my finger at you.
Hey.
But did you have any comments on the GESL before we wrap this up? I do really want to get to our next segment, but if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
I think, Jerry, I know you probably weren't able to watch it. You haven't had a chance to look into it much, but I think there's something that really needs to be pulled away from the GESL. And I posted on my Twitter at the event, or not at the event, but when the event was going on, excuse me, that Riot is not perfect. I want people to understand this. People seem to think that Riot is perfect. I think they do an amazing job, but they are not perfect. And this GESL, to me, we don't know all the circumstances, but it's a perfect circumstance of that. Basically, the reason that what happened was the first day, of course, they had some problems with the internet issues. That's all their fault. The GESL, that's all their fault. It was just a school problem that they didn't have time to work through to begin with. Second day went perfect, but then the third day, Riot actually patched the game. And when they patched the game, it broke every fucking thing. And it completely destroyed the spectator client. You weren't really able to do anything at all. There was no way that it could be done. To me, this was something that they knew about the GESL plenty ahead of time. They I think, provided a few things for GESL, maybe like Riot points and things like that. They didn't provide the Tournament Realm server at all, which to me is kind of unacceptable. I really wish they would find an easier, more streamlined way of doing that. That way, patches don't affect tournaments that are being held, because the big thing is the problem that people have with Riot right now is it's so hard to run Riot tournaments for a lot of people for the smaller tournaments. So they need to find a more streamlined way to do that, or just don't patch the fucking game when a tournament's going on. That's something I think Blizzard would have enough presence of mind not to do. So there is at least a difference there. So yeah, I think that's really something that needs to be pulled away from this tournament.
Well, yeah, I think the story here though is really about the fact that that Gigabyte LAN is a small LAN, and I like your first option better than the second. Like they can't base their patches on every little LAN that shows up. I think that's ridiculous. But I do think giving them a server that's not going to be patched, that probably is a much better way to go. And they already had that set up. They do that for all the tournaments usually anyway, that email them ahead of time. And according to GSL, GSL is a smaller LAN, but it would probably call it mid-tier. It was a $40,000 event with a ton of sponsors and a ton of people. So, like I said, it's not a huge event by any means, but they knew about it ahead of time. They had the best teams in the world, or at least the best teams in North America there. So,
to be fair, with Riot, they do know when they mess up. If you haven't seen on the forums, for everyone that was affected, this isn't, of course, just about the event that just happened, but all players, of course, could not access the client. Anybody that has played a game in the last 10 days, Riot is giving them a free 10-win IP boost to make up for the game being down all day on Sunday. So, to me, they know when they mess up, they're trying to make good on it. I think that's pretty awesome to give everybody that has played a game in the last 10 days a gift. Nevertheless, I think it's about time we take our last break of the show so that we can move on and wrap things up. Stay tuned. We will be right back, and we'll see you in just a minute. And we are back on the losers bracket on our final segment of the evening as we are about to wrap up the 119th episode of our show. Still here with my co-hosts Jerry and Kurt. Kurt, before we head into the final segment that I have planned out for us this evening, I noticed we didn't really talk as much about the GESL StarCraft side of things, so please fill us in on a couple details, and then I'm going to try something a little bit new where I'm actually going to throw some questions towards Jerry and yourself and get your opinions on them. But please, GESL StarCraft.
That sounds dangerous. But
it is.
Yeah, GESL StarCraft, it was very, very interesting. It ran really well past probably the first day. They didn't really have very many delays. Beyond Gaming ran the stream over Captain Barbosa over there. He was at the event and ran the stream, so it was really pretty good. And the Koreans dominated, no doubt about it. Axlab was the highest placing American there at 9th through 16th. I think he placed 10th, technically. Or no, 9th. So, and then the top 8 were all Korean players. Sleep, of course, my player placed 2nd. He actually lost to Monster in the finals, MVP Monster, who is an absolute monster. Those MVP players that have sort of came out of, I guess not came out of nowhere, but the ones that I guess are a little bit less known from Team MVP are just bonkers. Dream and Monster are just ridiculous. I think Sleep played Dream, and it was just insane. The multi-prong drop harass that Dream did was just, it was just crazy. So please go back and watch those. Or not drop harass, but yeah, drop harass, excuse me. It was really amazing to see some of the stuff he did. So, but yeah, let's move on to the new segment there, Jason.
Sure, yeah. What I'm planning on doing here is I just want to throw a couple questions, some things that are coming up in the esports world, maybe some opinions that we get on Twitter. What I'd like to do eventually is get people to send us questions so that we can end the show with things that people want to hear about. So, Jerry, ready to hear some questions? Ready to answer? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Kurt, we'll start out with the first question actually on your side of things. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Here is my first question to you. And this is actually going to be something that you're going to absolutely love because you are such a huge fan of TSM and League of Legends. All right. TSM has now won 4 straight events, Kurt. Are they the favorites right now to win the Season 2 championship? Can they continue on this trend? Will they be the Season 2 champions at the end of this year?
I would say favorites in League of Legends is a strong word. It tends to change pretty quickly. When is the Season 2 championships? Do you know?
It is about 5 to 6 months away, I believe.
Oh, God. Here's my opinion. If the favorites for now, I would say yes, of course. I mean, they're doing so well. I mean, like you said, they've won 4 events in a row. So, yeah, I would say that they're definitely the favorites for now. Do I think they will win? No.
Really?
No.
Just here's badass here?
Well, here's one of the reasons. I do wonder the fact that all these events that they've won recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Moscow 5 at any of them?
Not at MLG. I don't believe they were at IPL, if I remember correctly. Moscow 5 did not win Dreamhack, though. They came in second. So
they came in second in a pretty close series, if I'm not mistaken with that.
It was 2-0.
And it was CLGEU, right?
Mm-hmm.
That who they lost to. I mean, in my opinion, Moscow 5 is really one of the teams to beat right now. Now, of course, TSM, it's an amazing team. I would say, like I said, for now they're the favorites. But I'm more interested to see when there's more of national. International teams, available. for this kind of thing. So I'm more interested to see things like ESL, and like you said, the sort of championships. So my opinion, no, they're not going to win.
Okay, Jerry, quick, your opinion. Same question. TSM's won 4 straight events. Are they the favorites for the Season 2 championship? Jerry,
I'm going to say no.
No,
I had to think about it. Let's say no.
Okay.
No, I think. I watched very closely the finals at MLG. To be fair, and taking a look at it, I think that CLG could surprise everybody. I really do. I think. I do think TSM is running the best scam in the business, though. They've got this shit scam so good. They've got every player assuming that they don't practice, they don't do any shit. They never talk about anything dealing with developing their players. You would think that all they do is hang out and drink.
Interesting. While on the same subject of TSM, next question for you, Jerry. The second TSM Invitational is this weekend. vVvGaming is going to be in this invitational. They were invited. We have by far the hardest bracket. Green Forest up first. If we win that, we'll go against Team Dynamic, and then we have a chance at playing TSM Evo. Could vVvGaming take top 4 even though they are in the hardest bracket?
No, not at all. Not a chance. You have TriDream out of the team. You have a team in transition. It's a very difficult time for a team like that that's young to get their head in the game and pull out amazing things. So it'll be an invaluable experience for them. But I think the team really, with a new player, has an uphill battle. I think that's for any team. So I'm optimistic, but I think it'd be unfair if I thought they could pull a top 4 finish.
Okay. Kurt, next question is for you, and this one's a little bit of a doozy. Earlier today, dmaq was on Twitter advocating for MLG to make a section of their next events specifically for, like they have fighters, a shooter section. So Gears of War, Halo 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, all sharing one stage. MLG, he says, would cap the teams so that there wasn't too much to handle. Would this fix the problem of finding a shooter and sticking with it? His exact tweet was, "This will keep all console shooters happy without MLG having to dedicate an enormous amount of space while they are growing individual communities." Is this the right way for MLG to do it or not?
That is a doozy of a question. Logistically speaking, I think it would be a nightmare. Do I think it would necessarily help? Of course. I think it would help. At any point in time, you're sort of supporting the communities and not necessarily putting a lot of money into it. To me, that's the big thing. The less money you put into it, the bigger potential return you could have on it. The more potentially your sponsors are happy with it, the more potentially you're happy with it. So if they're not spending a lot of money, it's possible that it would be a lot better event. I mean, they have said multiple times that, if I'm not mistaken, that Halo was by far the most expensive thing they've produced, right? Mm-hmm, correct me if I'm wrong with that. Maybe if they spent a lot less money on those things and just sort of provided the bare essentials to people to support their own game, then it's possible that it could work out. That being said, I don't see them doing it. I would like to think that they'll probably focus more on one game because, especially a game like Call of Duty needs that focus, I guess to say. Call of Duty needs that for MLG to put everything in one basket and go, hey, this is the game we're supporting. We're trying to make this big because it's a huge game. In the casual market, we want to make it big here, kind of thing. So that's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. Jerry, what do you think?
And would you like me to?
Yeah.
Whoop.
I think someone's talking to Jerry in the back.
Yeah, nope. I get no rest either. I think that I kind of have to agree with Kurt. I think logistically it sounds good, right? But I can say things that shooter players are going to find popular too. No offense to dmaq, I like dmaq, but you're going to have to tell me how you're going to actually. What is the actual value to MLG? Right? I mean, I don't see going through all that hassle to have a fighting game area, a shooter area. Yeah, I think there are bigger fish to fry. I mean, as sad as it sounds, it's just not. It's not MLG alone in this battle. I mean, I think you have to look at the fact that a lot of this is because of the developers, right? If the developers made a game that was much more spectator friendly and et cetera, I think it'd be a lot easier for MLG to run some of these games. So again, I don't think it's MLG. I think it really always will fall on the developer in my eyes.
Hey, we got Shoot Mania around the corner. We don't know. We could see a shooter soon. But last but not least, final question of the week. Jerry, this is first over to you. True or false? MLG League of Legends will have just as many or more chairs than MLG StarCraft before the end of the year.
True.
Ooh. Kurt,
do
you agree?
Look, it's not even, to me, it's not even close. To me, it's the inevitable. It's just more exciting to watch team games.
As far as me, I would say I would agree with Jerry. I think it's inevitable. Do I think it'll happen before the end of the season? I don't know. I haven't been to the Dallas venue. I'm not sure how that lays out. But I would say if they can fit it, yes, definitely.
Wow. All right. Some big words. I look forward to seeing if this is true. But with this being said, I want to continue doing something like this each and every week from now on, where we use your questions. So if you have questions that you'd like me to ask to Jerry, to Kurt, I'd love to hear them. You can tweet them to me or email me, paradise@vvvgaming.com. Any questions that you might have for this segment to end the show. With that being said, I think that just about wraps us up for the 100.
I want to touch on one other thing, though, that I think we should not miss, and I think it's sort of important. I don't know if anybody's paid attention, but the new 1.16 patch for Call of Duty adds the LAN support that has desperately been needed, right? So they call it competition mode, right? Well, the reason I think this is important is if it's here, we'll probably have it, and that solves one of Call of Duty's major problems. It doesn't solve all of them, but it solves one of them.
Right. That's interesting. I didn't even know about that. Really cool that you pointed that out, Jerry. But I guess we have to wait and see for Black Ops 2. I mean, it might be a little late for Modern Warfare 3, but nevertheless, the next game is, about 6 months away? So it's not too long of a wait till we find out. But either way, what was that, Jerry?
I was going to say, yeah, about 5 months, considering it's June, it'll come out in November. But I also think in those 5 months, a lot of Call of Duty players should be testing the competitive mode, the system link, and see how it works.
Very true. Very true.
I will say that I absolutely love the Black Ops developers so much more than the Modern Warfare developers. It amazes me. For those that don't know, PC Dev at PC Dev on Twitter is one of the Black Ops PC developers, and he answers so many questions on there and always has. And today he confirmed that Lean is going to be added back in for PC players. That's a huge thing from old school Call of Duty, and also adjustable field of view, which is something they didn't have in the original Black Ops. So, just a note since we're talking about patches and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right, with that being said, it's just about time for us to wrap up the show this week. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Control Freak, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, and of course a shout out to the band Power Glove for supplying their music for the Losers Bracket podcast. As I said before, any questions that you want us to ask in the future to Jerry and Kurt, please email them to me, paradise@vvvgaming.com. You can also email me or tweet me any feedback that you have on the show at vvvparadise on Twitter. Shoutouts for the week from myself. I already said one earlier to CEO Jabali for running an amazing event here in Orlando. Just really great job. The event was awesome. Shout out to Keats from Shoryuken for Divekick. I cannot wait to play that game again. kudos, really fun. Kurt, shout-outs for the week, my friend.
Yeah, thanks to all the people that have supported us recently. We got a lot of good stuff going on. We posted a results thread on Team Liquid from the MLG results. We held a contest, had a lot of people that helped us out. Sold a ton of shirts at MLG, so we appreciate everyone buying those. And yeah, look forward. More than anything, I do want to comment too. I really look forward to hearing from MLG some of the stuff they have planned for Raleigh. I really want to see. I want to see the show start to progress a little more. I think Anaheim was great. I just want to see it start to progress even a little more. Get sort of more branding into their, or not branding, more personality into their actual show. I really want to see it. So I'm excited.
Indeed. And Jerry, to wrap up the show, my friend, any shout outs you have for the week?
Just to the vVv community. Last night we had a big meeting on Mumble, about 50 of us, as I talked about what I wanted to change going forward into 2012. I think we have done a great job this year, and I want to bring in a little bit of the fun as we look forward to Guild Wars 2. Obviously, a lot of our community is very embedded in League of Legends. So anybody who's interested in League of Legends, come check us out. I think it's probably one of the most friendly communities to learn how to play League, if not the most friendly community. And I think it's a game well worth trying. So shout out to our community.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right, you have a great week. To everyone listening right now, if you do play League of Legends and would like to join us, definitely give me a shout. vVv Paradise on League as well. Would love to play with you. Until next week, my friends, take care. We've got some great shows coming up for you in the next couple weeks, by the way. Talk to Markman from Mad Cats, who will be joining us very soon. I also do believe we have T Squared on the chopping block. He should be coming on the show very soon as well. Look forward to both of those interviews, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, have fun gaming. We'll see you back here next Tuesday night for episode 120. Holy crap. How in the world? It doesn't even feel like we've been on the air that long, Jerry. But in the meantime, have fun. We'll see you back here next week, guys. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.